Hello and welcome to the Cuyamaga Institute, our Q&A Conversation for Exploration series. I'm Paul Robert, the Executive Director and President of the Institute, and along with my wife, Laura Lee, and the Director of Research, Education, and Outreach. And on behalf of our Board of Directors, advisors, volunteers, and supporting members, we want to thank you for joining us today. The Cuyamaga Institute is an independent, nonprofit research organization committed to researching consciousness and the human experience, following the footsteps of our founder, anthropologist Dr. Felicitas Goodman. And as an educational institution, we take an open approach and invite scholars in related fields to help broaden the scope of our own work and exploration. That's why we call this Conversation for Exploration. On these weekly Sunday discussions, we've included a full spectrum of topics from neuroscience, anthropology, art history, archaeology, mythology, archaeoastronomy, and much, much more. And you're welcome to visit our website at CuyamagaInstitute.com. All of our presentations are free, and as a nonprofit, of course, we invite you to become a supporting member. And we want to thank you, the community members who continue to support the mission of the Cuyamaga Institute. Let's talk about today. We're going to continue our exploration into sound. Sound is all around us. It's within us. Throughout time, sound has been used to heal, to transform, and today there seems to be rapid advancement in the field of acoustic research documenting these healing properties of sound. It's a powerful force that can bring forth a sense of peace and well-being, and we want to also understand and explore the power of our own voice. That's where the magic begins. We want to access the authentic voice to reconnect to our own sound.
Well, to find, I want to say that I want to thank Alexandru, Anton, one of our guests, for actually jump-starting this whole conversation and this whole interview today, because he's part of our community host program. And we were talking about speaking out, speaking our truth, speaking with power, speaking with authenticity, and how that if you bring a body of work into the world, speak it clearly. And he does just that. He's the voice coach. And he's a throat singer. And we're like, a throat singer? Oh my gosh. Well, we have to explore this. And so in talking with Alexandru, just to how he's a psychologist and how much our voice is tied to our psyche, how there are exercises, how there's ways to free the voice up. It is also freeing our psyche up, and how strangled some of us can be from being shut down as children, not to be heard, or being a female in today's era and not being able to speak, being allowed to speak fully. There's so much psychology to do with this. So we thought, you have to help us free our voices. This is a wonderful exercise that all of us need across the board, no matter what we're doing. This is our instrument. Our bodies, we talk a lot about it as our inner technology. Well, here's a piece of technology that is so front and center to us and our connection to the world and to one another. And so this is fascinating. So then we thought, Jane Elworthy. We have worked with Jane, another member of our community, having
10 years.
Taken not only a workshop at the Institute's facilities and meeting Jane and Jackie for the first time, but also you walked into the Kiva afterwards with Jane and you spontaneously sat down to record this most beautiful music. Just being in the groove and seeing what comes through. What I am fascinated by Jane is the light language, that she calls it, that is being in the moment and spontaneously speaking through, singing through, that ease. On you do this. You and her were the perfect two to come together for this duet, you on the flute, she on drum and voice, because this is how you play your instruments. You sit down and you feel it wants to come through, and it does, and that is part of the beauty. For a musician to be in the moment and want to see what comes through is also putting us, the listener, into that sense of what is wanting to emerge. And that is really what our work is all about, is tuning into the universe and seeing what wants to emerge and flow through us as hollow bones, right? So I think this is an extension of that. So, and that's why I'm so excited about today and to bring together two people who've never met, one in Romania, one in the outback of Australia. And let's just see what happens. Here's a container. Let's see what happens. Alexandru, psychologist, throat singer. He has traveled to Tuva, Yakutia, Altai, Mongolia to learn from the throat singers. And for 10 years, he's led workshops and coached those wanting to open up their voice and psyche. Welcome. Good to have you here. He joins us from his ancestral village in Romania.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. And
look at that deep, beautiful, resonant voice that he's got. Yeah, he's not loud enough. You need to turn up your mic.
Turn it up.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm a little shy to introduce myself before Jane because I also don't know her. So...
let me introduce Jane. Here is our good friend Jane Ellsworthy. She joins us from Broken Hill, New South Wales in Australia. She's in private practice as a sound healer, as a rhythm, consciousness, and voice teacher. She leads team building for community and corporate organizations. Spent 30 years as a frame drum maker. This was traditional male territory, mind you. She broke through. Teacher and performer of this instrument. She facilitates with her partner Jackie retreats in France, in the Outback, and the U.S., and it's 1:30 in the morning for Jane in Australia. Yeah. Thank you for braving the wee hours of the morning to be with us here today, Jane.
Oh, you're welcome. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, you sound great. Great.
Yes, it's wonderful to be here with you all. Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Yes.
Well, it's an interesting, a little bit turn of phrase there because Laura said traditionally male, but we know from your research, which we're going to talk about in another interview coming up in a few weeks, looking at the entire history of frame drumming and the connection, women's connection to that. Yeah. So that will be a fun discussion as well.
Historical aspect.
We thought we may touch on that today. We'll just see what emerges.
So lots of fun we're going to have here today. So let's talk first about who you both are. And Alexandru, how did you find your way from a degree in psychology to focus on the voice? And then we'll ask Jane that same question.
Yes, I was actually shifting from a very mathematics and computer science oriented direction, which I didn't find much satisfaction in. Because I got to those points where I would be spending whole evenings writing programming code in front of the computer, and I just couldn't see myself continuing that in the future. So then I approached psychology to understand better, you know, how things work and myself and other people. But also, that kind of left me a little unsatisfied because I was so much into this kind of mental way of examining things and understanding things. So then I came across this shamanic workshops with. I was lucky to be exposed to a very fertile period at that time. Every month there will be some healer, some shaman from somewhere in the world arriving in Bucharest for a weekend, you know. So it was like incredible opportunities from Brazil, from Greenland, from America, and this kind of. So there I had this opportunity to really see how just through singing and a little bit of drumming, of course. People's energy can change a lot, and the energy of the whole room full of 30 participants, let's say, would be totally different after half an hour of singing some traditional songs. So this kind of, I think now, this kind of broke through my mental resistance and armor, and I couldn't deny that something was happening.
And I
So,
think that
yeah.
is really the gist of it. To follow your own path, I always find those stories so interesting. How do we tune in
Right.
and then know which way to go in the world? How do we navigate? By what North Star are we in Star Within are we navigating? So I love those. I love those stories.
Those stories, right?
Yeah, and I think this is what you and Jane have in common, is finding what wants to emerge and where to go. Jane, what's your story? How did you arrive at the voice as a primary instrument for your steering your wheel?
I guess that the voice and rhythm came along together for me. But when I was a kid, I didn't speak. I had, I was told not to speak, and from certain trauma, I was silent. And so it was a long road for me back to the voice. But I ended up in the corporate world in my early 20s, and similar to Alexandru, it was just so unsatisfying for me. And I ended up studying drama. And so that wasn't until I was in my late 20s. And it wasn't until I got to drama school and was completely challenged by some of the things we were doing that I had to start using my voice. And then when it came out in so many ways, and it came out with so much behind it that it had been, pent up all these years, that it was a bit of a shock for me. But from that, I really realized what I'd been holding back, and that a whole aspect of my soul had been dampened down, because the voice is an aspect of the soul. And then I went to teach theatre in Santa Fe in 1992, and there I came across the frame drum with a man called Glenn Velez. Although I had an early thing when I was 12 with the drum, and I remembered it, but that's a much longer story. And I was actually a drum maker before I was a player. So I was like, skinning goats, and it's
You went down to the
I realized I needed to learn that side of it. Not anymore. I don't skin goats anymore. But there was a long journey for me, and then the light language began to develop. But really, the frame drum was the instrument for me, and they go, because it's such a portable instrument, they go together so well. The harmonics that are coming from the frame drum and the harmonics that are coming from the voice just seem to amplify each other. And Jane, did I work with Lane Redman? Yes, I knew Lane. Yes, yeah, wonderful. Yeah.
And you use the drum too, Alexandru. So what Jane said, it just goes so well. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
So, go ahead.
No. Well,
I know that you're the musician here. I am not. So this is really,
well,
I want to step aside. You're the...
Considering myself a musician is sort of a little bit of a leap, but I appreciate the fact that I can embrace sound and all the qualities of what sound has to offer, and follow it from an intuitive method. Because like you talked about the academic world, I'm sorry, when you talked about the industrial world or working in the corporate world, there's a certain limitation there. And even within the confines of being someone who never totally was comfortable with reading music, studying music, and with the amount of discipline that music takes, I had to say, if I'm going to enjoy music, I'm just going to have to let go, because I'm never going to be able to be Beethoven. I'm never going to be able to duplicate the sounds in the proper method and read music and dedicate my life to it. But I enjoy having music be a part of my life. I want to take the joy of music. I want to have the dessert of music. So I may have skipped over the main meal of what it takes to be a musician.
Wasn't Beethoven hearing the song
that's
already
true.
formed in him?
That's
and
true.
just had to bring it out?
That's true,
so
too.
I think that even that aspect, we might call it mystical, but to really find your voice is to help find your song.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's been part of the quality for me, is being able to embrace it that way. And I find that Jane, first of all, we had the very first time that we met back, I think in 2012 or something like that, and at the Institute. And then we got together again, and then you came to visit us in the States, and we did some recording together, and then we went to Australia and spent time with you again at one of your presentations that you lead. And so it was really fun and exciting, and finding a kinship with people that have that, and same with you, Alexandru. I mean, it's that kinship of addressing sound as something that comes from within, that those of us have been told all of our lives, oh, you can't carry a tune, you shouldn't sing, or you're not a musician, you don't play guitar very well, or, whatever. It's like having that joy of music there, because what it comes down to also, especially with the singing, is that it's an extension of the breath, right? Alexandru, you and I spoke about this. I mean, there's an element to the fact that breath is life, and life is breath, and if we can connect,
and breath is what activates the voice,
and the activation of the voice, giving resonance to breath itself has a power. It has a much deeper, more profound meaning, I think, than we realize, and it's something that we come back to, and when we experience it. And so when we hear something like the tuba throat singers, that deep, profound sound, and it just continues and it continues. And
he can demonstrate it for us.
Yes, it's such a Could
it's
you
transfixing.
Yeah, it's transfixing.
Yeah. Right. Would you like to speak to a little bit about throat singing, and then?
Yes, I agree with you. The voice is an extension of the breath.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. It was interesting. You gave us a demonstration. Alexandru spent an hour with us working us through this to see what he does, which he'll do in this course coming up. But it was so interesting to start to feel and to get identified with the various parts. Your voice starts down here, right? Your voice is just this. Do you want to both speak to that? What is the voice? How does it work? How do you tap into it? How do you find this sweet spot? I will say just quickly that Peggy and Ray, who took us to that concert, they were talking about seeing Tony Robbins and hearing him talk about how he wore out his vocal cords to like nothing. Can you really do that? Can you really wear out your vocal cords? But I also believe, and I know that going into radio, every incoming talk show host had to go meet with a voice coach. I took one lesson from her, but she really said about find the sweet spot, find where you naturally your voice rests, because then there's no effort in the talking. If you're struggling, and I've heard many strangled voices and many constricted voices, and it's like a fight to get it out, or when you're upset, your voice tightens. But if you find that sweet spot where your voice, where you're designed to be, where your physiology wants you to be, there's no effort. It's like the free flow of it, right? And so part of it is finding where your natural voice is. And she was saying, so this voice coach, so many people aren't speaking in their natural voice for whatever reason, right? Do you want to address that, Mr. Psychologist? Because that's a psychological issue.
Well,
definitely.
I can start commenting a little about how you kind of projected this musician status on Paul, and this is like something we generally do in society. We project the music and the ability to sing on selected privileged few, who are on the stage and who have this formal training, and this is actually one of the, to put it all very bluntly, this is one of the biggest blocks that people in general have to overcome to sing. It's not the actual technique or using the voice and the vocal cords. It's this mental block that, oh, I don't have a good voice, and oh, nobody will listen to me, and all this stuff. So it's like you have to take the people, during these workshops to this kind of experimental basis to see if it's really true what we are believing. Let's do simple vowels, higher, lower, and see, reverse engineer the voice to see how much you are actually already doing while you are speaking. You know that, and then we go to this African proverb: if you can walk, you can dance. If you can speak, you can sing. And
Yeah.
it's really, where is this separation between speaking and singing?
And I think women have even more laid on us through culture, don't we, historically? You know, or children. Children should be seen and not heard, right? That kind of thing. Don't speak. When can you speak? When do you have permission to speak? Can you speak loudly? Can you, scream and yell and shout? All of that. I mean, Jane, you can back me up on this.
Yeah,
All the women in the room can back me up on this. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where we are. It's certainly part of my mission is, to bring the divine feminine back into rhythm and voice. But just, following on from what Alexandru was saying, like it's similar with rhythm in that there's many cultures where you're not allowed to touch the drum until you can vocalize the rhythm. Like with the tabla, tarikadin, takadin na, that kind of thing. You have to say that for years and years and years, and in African culture as well, and speak and vocalize those rhythms, and that they come from the body. For me, voice comes for me, before you are allowed to touch the drum at all. So, yeah, I don't think a lot of people think the origin of the voice is here, but for me, it's not. It's not. That's the secondary process. To me, it's the heart and the belly. And, yeah.
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 Jane, why don't you give us an example of that rhythm? Because I know you have your drum there. It'd be great to be able to share some of that to give people an idea of how that comes, and then when you can hear that and how that vocables follow, how you have that connection.
Well, I want to also say that the body, you mentioned it comes from the body. And so many of us in the West are not really inhabiting our bodies fully.
Yeah.
Right?
Good
we
point.
think that heaven's up there and hell's down here. And so where does that leave the body? Right? The body, we have so many layers pushed, of issues pushed onto the physicality of us. That we need to embrace that again, embrace Mother Earth, and be friends with entirely our own physical universe as well.
Yeah.
I think.
Absolutely.
Look at how we're
Here
destroying
for
the
that.
earth. Look how we're treating our earth. Look how we're treating one another. Can we just get back? If we get that right, and I think that we'll get this right naturally, and we won't have to fight to get back to that space. But go ahead, Jane.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, how about I just do a very simple. Let's see what happens.
Okay, I love it.
So there's all sorts of different drums that I play, but I'll just play with it. One of my drums here that I made 1992. It's still
What is
going.
that, kangaroo skin? What is that?
This is a deer skin. This one. I do have a number of kangaroo skins. Got a fish skin here.
Wow.
So let's just see. Yeah, I'll just see what happens. Comes out. Kotiai salekai oia salakilai ho. Sakliai shai sai oia tokilai ho. Hananglekai hai yokyarue manangoe. With a yoknde ho. Mawate, 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 mawate. Shaisai e akai ole isala a ambu o I inaya. He, asai ukite al asamoy kai e shala a di I ilia. No kai aya tisala indaya wala kele aya. Wala kole wala kole wala kole
So beautiful.
Finding your own song. Yeah. Letting it come
And
through.
there's that whole process by which it's, as people may not know, this is not an organized, pre-scripted song. That you listen to the rhythm speaks to you, you speak back to the rhythm. You're taken on a journey within the context of the rhythm itself in the song that comes to you. Yes? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. In a way, it's like allowing the drum. We don't just play the drum; we allow the drum to play us. And it's the same for me with the voice. It's whatever comes out reflects back as well, and it's a call and response within yourself, and of course, all the other beings that you're communicating with.
That was just so beautiful.
Call and response. I like that.
Since we're already in that kind of transition,
Alexandru.
let's have Alexandru add to the vibe. Thank you, Alexandru. Yeah.
I find this so empowering and democratizing because this could open up to everybody, right? You are all saying everybody can be a musician, a singer, find our authentic voice, find the song within. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't originate just in us. It's pulling something in and through us, right? Then it becomes a sacred task, a sacred journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So let's talk about the applications a little bit. I mean, so we all can, at least I speak for myself, I can definitely feel myself settling in. I feel something shifting. I feel a peacefulness. I feel something changing in my entire mood or my chemistry of who I am when I hear these kinds of sounds. The application, and Jane, you talked about even applying it in the corporate world. What's the effect? How do you approach this?
Oh, well, I probably wouldn't do that in the corporate world.
They could benefit from it, but
they could benefit from it. But when I work in the corporate world, I am working with rhythm and voice, but it's more in a team building sense. It's not channeling so much.
Yeah.
Well, it is, but I don't call it that. But what was the question again?
Applications of sound, the applications of how you can use this and how it affects people.
Well, in terms of we are sound. We're just frequency condensed into physical matter, and so when it's like this is sound. When we hear sound, it's sound meeting sound. And so, like you were saying, Paul, it can change the physical cellular structure of the body. And I work a lot also with tuning forks and crystal bowls and other instruments as well. And look, what can I say? What can I say about what it's, in terms of rhythm, just keep it to rhythm just for now. Like, we're born into a rhythmic world. We're born into a world where we embody rhythm through our heartbeat, our nervous system, our breath, our pulsation. Everything is a rhythmic world. And then particularly for women, as you're saying, Laura, but I think for everybody really, where really rhythm is taken away from us to some degree or another. And I could talk about that specifically with what happened with the drum, but I do know that in many cultures, say, for example, when missionaries would go to indigenous cultures, often one of the first things they would do was take away their rhythm. Because if you take away someone's rhythm, you take away a great part of their empowerment. And so coming back into who we are rhythmically and in training back into, our own, yes, sound making sound, absolutely. It's our sound is our birthright. And so, yeah, it's certainly a mission of mine to, yeah.
What we're there in a mother's belly and her heart's beating, and I'm assuming, can hear them through the whole being
physiology.
as we develop. Right?
Yeah.
So we're born with that heartbeat. Mother Earth has a heartbeat.
Yes.
Alexandru, tell us about throat singing in that tradition and what that is trying to
Accomplish.
access and accomplish and apply. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a very old style, and I'm not sure it's actually connected to some specific part of the world, because long time ago, when everybody was pretty much very well connected to nature, you can hear this everywhere. Even every voice, every sound includes overtones. It's just nobody there listening to them, you know. And so I think when people were really spending time, the hunter-gatherers or the first shepherds, let's say, they were having a very contemplative life, and their perception was very much spacious and open, and they could instantly receive all this wisdom from nature, from the sounds, from the wind, from the water, from the animals. So throat singing, it's like a natural progression from the natural sounds into the human voice. And so there are styles which are like very much like a sharp whistle. There's this low one, which I demonstrated in the beginning, which is very much connected to the water and earth elements, like this muddy volcanoes, like it's very grounding sound, and it's then you have these styles which are like very melodious, like it's like a lot from the heart, from the chest voice, because you apply this epiglottis contraction, and so then you get a lot of resonance in the chest, and they are singing whole songs like this, And then I met Paul and Laura from the Koyamunge Institute. They they sing they sing like this all the time with this contraction, and then after they say the words, like this informational half of the things, or the male principle, we might say, then they prolong the song with these overtones, which are like cleansing and bringing inspiration and relaxation to the consciousness. So it's a very, very powerful technique. It's mind blowing. First time somebody hears overtone singing, it's mind blowing, because you've never heard anything like this before,
And how
and
do
it's
they do
still
it?
it's there. It's concrete.
Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate the reference to nature and how we really are in so much of our music, and the entrancement of it and its rhythm is really about getting back to nature, resetting that relationship with it, and what nature is feeding us, getting into the rhythm with it. And Lawson Malnori, who, by the way, graduated with his MA in ethnomusicology from Arizona State University recently, tells us, and wrote his thesis all about our work. Thank you for
Institute's
that, Lawson.
work, yep.
Yeah, and gave us a Sunday interview where he talks about that special quality of so many ethnic instruments, including our own rattles and drums, that he coined a term, latu secient, to get to that that indescribable quality that hasn't yet been thoroughly examined or acknowledged in that. And so I think that is part of that. I hear that in the throat singing. I hear that in the resonant tones. I hear that in what we're talking about too. What is alluring us to that quality that's not you can call it timbre, color. There's so many words around it, but I just wanted to acknowledge Lawson and what you're saying about nature. Yeah. And also, interestingly, you mentioned the interview that I co-hosted with Brian Tucker with the Catholic nuns and spontaneity of ritual, right? That was our topic.
Right.
And they're also talking about nature. Even Corinne Dempsey, religious scholar, talked to us about the Icelandic healers and seers. She said that the one thing that they have in common, they're referring to nature, how nature is empowering them. She also did a study of elder religious people, what most drew you, and she said they look out the window and say nature. So I think it's so interesting that I agree with you wholeheartedly, Alexandru, about nature's from whence we come, nature's where we go, and we're always wanting to renew and renegotiate that relationship with it as we cloister ourselves away from it. We're still longing for it and what it gives us, right? How it informs and shapes us. So
yeah,
we hear
And
that
I
theme
would
occurring again and again. Is my point. Yeah.
I would add a little bit about what has changed over the ages. No, these these people were like very spontaneous and free, and so they had this clear experience of energy flowing, no, and they were aligning to the energy flows in the universe, in nature. This they were respecting these natural phenomena, and they had reverence for it, and they were aligning themselves to all this to live to survive and to live in abundance. No, so so then they knew that if you get stuck into some separate identity, you know, apart from all this, then it's like then we are doomed. They knew it and they could see it.
There's a
So
reason you're a
so then
psychologist. Yeah.
yeah, I mean this is not from psychology.
I
This is
I was
from
being facetious. Yeah.
singing.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So then children, oh, you see children whenever they have like a surplus of energy, they express it. They
Spend it.
they kick it. They kick around. They jump around. They roll on the floor. They shout. They sing. You know, they don't stay there like this and contracted and afraid or things like this. So so if we get back this beginner's mind, know how they call it, then it becomes natural. We we start feeling our emotions and we see actually we are suffering if we just hang on to them, you know. We realize we are suffering if we just keep them like bricks.
Right. And don't allow the free flow in
Yeah,
and
yeah.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And we are, I mean, you know, it's we talk so much about getting back to nature, but actually we can't escape nature. We are, you know, we are nature. Like, you know, it's, you know, we are.
Yeah.
There's a constant interface. It's like nature finding nature when we step out into. I'll tell a very, very brief story. I had a great experience where I was part of a group of Aboriginal elder women who were doing their ceremonies, and they opened them up to white women for the first time. It was out in the middle of nowhere. And they were playing with their clapsticks. They do a very interesting, simple rhythm in 3, when they're singing, doing their chanting and their ceremonies. We had no idea what they were doing. We were just there to observe and to be part of it. And more women came from other communities from, hundreds of miles away. They just turn up, and they ran out of, all the white women we were in our camp, and we had our miso soup, and our noodles, and they had their white bread rolls, the Aboriginal people, and their bottles of Coke, and they ran out of clapsticks. And in this ceremony, sacred, you could feel the shamanic power in their ceremonies, and they ran out of clapsticks, and so they started using plastic Coke bottles.
Yeah.
And all we whiteys were like, you can't do that. It's so, it's so not sacred. But for them, I learned the biggest lesson. The interface it's a different interface for them. It didn't matter what they were using. That was the medium. It had nothing to do with the spirit that was being channeled, through the being. Coke bottles, whatever, and I really learned something, from that. It was, and it was
all
no
of creation
less,
is sacred.
Yeah.
and it was no less powerful. That's, and it was a
I'm gonna have
great
to try
lesson for
that.
us whiteys.
2 Coke bottles.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's gonna go look at the refrigerator, get the Coke bottles.
Reminds me of The Gods Must Be Crazy.
Oh yeah,
The Coke
right.
bottles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big lessons learned there too. Yeah.
Big lessons learned there. It's no less sacred. We get into imposing that on ourselves.
Yeah. So maybe we are too divisive, right? Maybe we do think in terms of black and white, sacred, not sacred, right? I'm a musician, not a musician.
Projection
And
externally.
maybe we need
of
to
the
loosen
sacred.
up those boundaries and dissolve some of those barriers. I
Well,
think
yeah.
this is what this is all about today.
And like we had that experience before when we talked to Ipu Priala, who was from the Uruwawa tribe out of Brazil. And he said that, that he says, you Westerners, man, you get so lost in this idea that be sacred has to be silent. He says, no. The grandmothers are doing ritual, and the kids are pulling on their aprons, and dogs are running around. And it's not, it's like all of a sudden the sacred is within. And
Sacred's not just in the church walls. Sacred's everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
That whole concept. Right,
That's
exactly.
it.
Well, we stood on a mesa top at Cuyamonga with a Tasuki elder.
Right.
And he was describing their church. And he said, this whole valley, and you could see miles down the valley, is the floor of the church. The mountains, here's the Jemez Mountains, here's the San Cristo Mountains. These are the walls of the church. This is the ceiling of the church, the sky. And to understand that, yeah.
Alexandru, on a side note, if you can turn up your mic volume, if you have any ability on your computer to turn your volume up, because your volume is much lower than Jane's.
He's having to adjust
So
constantly.
I appreciate
How
if you
about how about now?
Nope, not enough.
I don't think it's much difference.
No, still not.
Not too bad. I mean, we can hear you fine, but it was quite, especially when you were singing, it was lower. Okay,
Oh,
Yeah.
now try it.
I want to talk about finding your own song, since we're on
Okay.
that. How do each of you tune into that? Alexandru, what do you have to say about find your own song? You can find your authentic voice. There's exercises to do that. It's a journey. But then
I will bring this closer.
Good.
oh, much
So-
better. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So this is singing is about flowing. There is no. I'm trying to break apart this myth of creating songs,
Yes.
because the songs are coming. If we are open, they are coming. They are everywhere. It's we have this native ability, like children do, and we can refine it to really express and to to prolong our inner experience through sound. It's as simple as that. Is it's like when you go to the dentist. You have this clarity. You have some pain, and you feel instantly that the fastest way to release that pain is if you make that sound.
Ah.
And that sound, how is that sound? If you make it like intellectually, it won't help you. You have to you have to make it from the body, from the chest, like really feel the voice, how it's coming, and grabbing that pain, and you are expressing it out into the open. And we can all do this. And then it's just a matter of extending this ability to whatever inspires us. No, you can. I get a lot of inspiration sometimes after I watch some very very great movies. They touch me to such deep levels that then I have all these feelings, and then the songs come very easily. Or I meet somebody, or I see a natural landscape, and these are situations when it's very easy to sing. Just if we allow this to manifest. This is the only trick, if you can call it a trick. And it's about flowing, because you see, this rational mind, we got used to control, and like you said, to make categories for everything, and we are suffering from this chronicle comparison syndrome.
Yes.
We compare ourselves with how we were singing yesterday. We compare how we are singing with how others are singing, and everything. It's about comparing. But once we express what we are feeling now, then really comes a place and a space when we have no idea what we will be feeling next. If you really express what's burdening you, even if it's pain, suffering, or pleasure, it's also, if you have a lot of unexpressed pleasure and joy, it's also like toxic, no? We have to express everything that's filling us. So once you express it and you really let it flow, then there's no way of knowing what kind of feeling will come next. It's a very vulnerable place. But you just breathe, and we are present and see, oh, now after this joy, I feel a little nostalgia. So then you sing this nostalgia. Then after this nostalgia, I feel a little angry. Why am I nostalgic about this? Here it's very beautiful now, so, and you sing this. So we have a infinite amount of fuel for singing. This is how I see it. It's and very very nicely Jane put it. We are compressed frequencies. They are just looking for a microphone.
But I think that for many of us, we are so compressed. The sound is so compressed that I love what you said, Alexandru, and I completely agree with everything you're saying. But what's happened to us in terms of sound, or the lack of sound that comes from us, is political. It's been, we've been imposed upon to be silent, and I think it's got, it's the root of so much illness. Is where we haven't made these sounds. When we've kicked our toe, a lot of people just go when what they want to do is go and we'd stay well. But I find when I'm working with people that a lot of people can't. They just can't. They haven't yet been able to make sound. Like I couldn't when I was young. So I find what really, really helps is movement. And because I'm working with the rhythm, I get people to start from really, really basic, which is just stepping. I get people to put on ankle bells, and then they've got an audible sense of their own movement. So they can hear chink, chink, instead of just stepping left, right, which is brilliant. And one thing that that's doing is it's balancing the left and right hemispheres of the brain. And yeah, because we tend, as we know, to be very much in the left hemisphere, the logic, and that logic part of our brain is going, you're not allowed to talk, it's impolite to swear, and, you know, all the cultural conditioning. And so just something as simple as left and right stepping will just start balancing those hemispheres. But then you put on some ankle bells, and you can buy them on eBay, and they're brilliant. And then you can hear this ching, ching, ching,
and
ching.
then you're dancing.
And then you're dancing and you're making sound. And then just from there, I find, you know, sometimes I begin, and then we form like a sense of entrainment, where something entrains within that being, and quite quickly they can start to make some sound. And sometimes it freaks them out and you start again. But then, you know, within 10 minutes, people are usually quite amazed at what they, you know, the sounds that come from them. And then it just opens out.
I would like to hear from Sherilyn, who's posting some interesting comments, and she's also a musician. Sherilyn, I know you have something to add here as a fellow singer, songwriter, musician, and astronomer.
On the side.
I'm putting you on the spot, I hope not.
Yeah, here she comes.
Yes, because I'm busy sucking up every word of these extraordinary people, and my most fun musicality is really in an improvisational world, right, of vocal improvisation. And I just was writing a new comment, so I'm a little the audible sense of own movement. What it just ding, we're doing an outreach project to the blind and visually impaired. That would be just an extraordinary multi-sensory body awareness, but then having the sound feedback, right? And so of course it's good for getting us all out of our heads, sighted or not sighted, but it felt like, wow, what a powerful way to engage such learners. I don't know if that's something you've ever done before, but I am curious how you get corporate people out of their heads. And I want to employ you immediately, in the variety of science education contexts where I run. We are trying very hard to integrate the arts and to integrate multi-sensory and to cross cultures. And all of that seems to be beautifully embodied in the work that you're doing here.
Yes. I think I find that rhythm is the key, because everyone is inherently rhythmic. We have a pulse. Actually, that's how I usually start with corporate people, is I get them to physically feel their pulse. And they're like, oh my God, I'm alive.
I have one. Yeah.
I have rhythm. It's there.
I have rhythm, and there's a whole lot of techniques that, of course, I would be happy to share, but probably not in this context, but more in the bigger session that I do on May the 1st.
Okay.
But I find just rhythmic movement to start with, and the ankle bells, and getting the ankle bells on them, and then often just something before people initiate on their own. Call and response is really good, because they don't have to come up with anything. Hey-oh, hey-oh. Yeah. Chelela, boom, 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 boom. And then people just start opening up, and just keep it simple. And then also, of course, the whole thing with team building in corporate situation is the sense of an ensemble, because that's what a team is. So you get someone on the bass drum. I usually teach something simple like the samba. Someone's on the bass drum, someone's on the bell, someone's on the djembe and the cowbells, and when all very simple, but when you put it together, it sounds really funky and complex and beautiful. And then they're just like, wow, if I can do this, what else can I do? And that's what we want out of the session. What else can I do? I can do this. And there's a sense of new achievement and power. It's about empowering.
I like that call and response, because even I've seen Paul play his flute to a crow and then the crow trills, and then Paul will play, and then the you know, and suddenly it's a language. It's a shared language, right? And I think that's why we like jazz, is because one musician's doing this, the other one responds, and then there's an exchange, call and response.
That's how.
And it becomes communication. It becomes a language.
Right.
So I think that's, yeah.
And that's how Jane and I worked together. I played the flute, and then she would respond.
Oh, yeah, there's
then
a
I played the
beautiful
flute,
piece.
and then she'd respond.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it was that direction rather than me responding to her voice. It was beautiful that she, go ahead, Paul, do whatever. I can follow.
That reminds me that even, you know, even music performed at its best is a call and a response, right? It's a call to the hearts and bodies of people who then, I know from musical performance, you know, and singing, you know, I'm offering something, and you can feel, you know, an audience, or the participants, I prefer to say, you know, responding to what you're offering, and then that feeds what you're offering. And there's this cycle, you know, whether or not there's a vocalized return, there's this, and there can be at the end, we sit quietly. But I would love for us to do some call and response. And Alexandru, before I stop blathering, I loved what you said about the translation of something into a musical form, of what you're feeling, what you're observing, what you've experienced, life experience translated. And I've recently had that with the flute, which I picked up like a child. I inquired into it. I didn't read the instruction manual. Right. And I've had a revolutionary experience in music by just simply playing, literally playing with the instrument to see what it would do. And then finding ways in which my response to the natural world or my response to a situation would be translated, even if I didn't feel an expertise, right? And then such amazing and self-fulfilling. I recommend, you know, just a Native American flute to everyone. It's so simple a translation process, simple. But self-inquiry, the song as self-inquiry, right? How am I feeling? What is going to come out of me now? A process of discovery. And it's really anyone, I believe anyone can do this. I really appreciate that message that you're giving us.
Yes.
I like that. Song is self-inquiry.
Song as self-inquiry. Vulnerability. What's going to come out, and not judgment. All right. And if you have a pentatonic flute, you can't offend too many people in the environment.
You can't go off course too much, right?
Because of course, sorry, Alexandru. I was just going to say we're never performing alone. We're in the quantum field, and you know, and so that's responding. We're playing to that and responding every second.
Yeah.
You know, and we're getting that feedback back, and we're offering that out, and that's what's changing the world. And yeah, it's there as a beautiful sort of melodic soup the whole time. And I love how you just explore with your flute like that. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Explore.
Yeah.
Freedom.
Thank you, Sherilyn. Yeah. And I know you, Alexandru, to respond.
Yeah, I want to respond to Sherilyn's call.
Yes, go ahead.
It's amazing, but in very many languages we use this word play the instrument. In German it's spielen, in French is joie. I don't know the French so well. In Romanian it's not play, it's like singing at the instrument, but in many languages this word play is used. So this I took it as a hint.
Yes.
to get back and really when you give a native flute, let's say, to somebody who got stuck in this very sophisticated way of looking at things, it's like you can see they are trying to play all the holes at once. There is no patience. There's this instant desire for instant gratification, you know, just to try everything at once, and if it doesn't work, then drop it. you know. So we forgot how to play somehow. No, it's like it's you know how would the baby pick a flute? You know, just like this and look, stare at it for like half an hour and
Yeah,
bite
yeah.
it, you know, lick it, taste it a little, and then play, see what happens, you know. And it's you can see this in all the great musicians. They are tapping the guitar, they are scratching, they're making sounds. They're not sticking to the chords only.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Right, and, a good
That would be a call and response to your instrument. Tap it and see what happens. See what it wants to do. Yeah.
I was going to mention our good friend David Night Eagle, who teaches children how to play flute. Because that pentatonic scale gives an opportunity for any child to have an opportunity to put together some notes and say, "Oh,
We talked to a piano player, a piano instructor ages ago, and he said that rather than try to, hey kids, learn all the notes, right? Memorize this, learn it into
scales.
that he just said, pick a favorite song. Okay, let's do that one little chord. One little chord. Now let's add another chord. So so they get instant gratification by
Rather than
I can do
discouragement,
this.
yeah.
Oh, I'm encouraged. I'm empowered. Let me do some more. So
Right.
starting with something that's fun and pleasurable and you get success at early on, rather than I have to learn all of music theory before I play a note.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
No,
you."
and so Jane, what you were saying about the simplicity of just making some basic musical form and a group discovering, whoa, I can, that sounded good. I liked how that sounded, and you're giving them some elements to be sort of instantly creative. So there's some combination of the instant gratification and Alexandru, the patience to just play and make mistakes and discover. I'm probably doing more advanced techniques from playing than the instruction book would tell me to do for 6 months. Right? Doing stuff with my tongue. I'm, playing with my fingers and, having a real breath kinesthetic experience that, it is literally generating thing. Who knows if it's in the instruction manual or not? I like what's happening.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Well, wasn't that part of the brilliance of the Beatles is that they were inventing new ways of using their instruments?
Sure.
Yes.
So, yeah. And innovating constantly early on.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Cheryl. And we have lots of comments in the chat room as well. If you want to raise your hand and participate in the discussion, go down to the reactions button and raise your hand up. And
I want to mention that,
I want-
Alexandru, you mentioned how people in the countries you traveled in Tuva and elsewhere, that they set aside points to go and observe nature, that they're very much part of nature, the locals as well as the tourists, these beautiful vistas and nature. And so that's part of reconnecting with that resonance, with that flow, with that voice of nature, with hearing it on the wind, hearing it within. Do you want to speak to that and that appreciation and what your travels in those countries taught you?
Well, actually, I was surprised. It was very clean everywhere, pretty much everywhere. It was very clean, and then somehow I realized it was a natural thing to do because they had respect for the nature. So throwing something in nature, it was like offending a friend or offending a grandmother, or to them it had this kind of connotation. So it's even when walking through the forest, you you would do it with some respect and with this kind of awareness that you are not just walking through a pile of wood, you know. It's something is there. So so this was and everything is applied, by the way. Everything is used. They have this remedies from nature. They have this in Siberia. They have this knowledge that uh, some animals can help you for overcoming certain illnesses uh, and this kind of stuff. And for example, if you walk through the forest and you see this tree hit by lightning, you know, and it's broken and it cut by lightning, and you have this tree stump, and it's like charcoal, no, it's burnt. Then everybody rushes to it to get a little piece of it, because that's a place where the sky energy meets the earth energy, and that's a concrete piece of it.
Talisman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So they have this kind of wisdom, you know. They are not so much interested like, oh, what's the chemical composition of this charcoal, or it's this symbolic uh, way of seeing things. It's still working, and
Yeah.
it's very powerful.
Thank
So
you.
I think this opens up a lot of inspiration.
Yeah.
We went through this. I mean, there's nothing wrong with science as long as we don't give up the magic of nature, and you know, it's like we are pretending, oh, we know how rain works, so then there's nothing magical about rain. But we don't know everything about how rain works.
And it's still magical.
Yeah.
Still a blessing.
Yeah.
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
You have comments from the chat room.
I see. Rich Brown said, "Call and response. Blues is what I speak to. That speaks to me the loudest. What I play. But listening here, I'm doing it in reverse. I'm learning the piece and reproducing it and composing it and playing the composition. I'm not considering letting the guitar play me." But he gets back and forth the response.
Okay.
And then Tony said, "There's a theory of location of rock art interpreted as being sacred, being preferential place so that there's an acoustical response." It's an interesting correlation. Fazzad said two things. One, he said, let's do a call and a response, and we'll do that later because I'll turn on all everybody's mics, but it's hard for me to turn them all on and turn them all off again so that we can continue talking. But he also said, let me see if the second time is 10:08. Here it is. He was talking about in Persian, playing the music has two references: to caress the instrument and to hit it. So like we were talking about whether...
Why don't you jump on your mics and say this?
Yeah. So that's
Yes, well, that's so with the frame drum. That's there's different strokes that relate to the different elements, and there's ones where you can scratch the skin and you know, bend the notes and caress the skin, and then others where it's, you know, you're slapping on the skin and
right. Beautifully said. So go ahead.
Well, we also have slideshows.
Oh, okay.
If you all want to do your slideshows.
Well, Rich did raise. Let me have Rich ask his question in person now that I have him up. Hi, Rich. Put you on.
Hey there. I love the discussion about call and response, and Alexandru, when you were answering a question, you said I'm responding just like in the call and response, and I learned about call and response playing the blues, and the history of the call and response in America, as far as I understand it, the United States is the slave culture when they were working in the fields, and they would call out to one another to make the time go by, and that indigenous culture is still alive and well, even the Western world trying to shake it out of them. Black churches and choirs and things like that are just incredibly rich. I love playing the spirituals and feeling that vibe. And the other thing I wanted to comment on is this aspect of acoustics in nature. I met a fella I was on a motorcycle trip with a bunch of other knuckleheads. And it was part of a radio tour I was doing. And we stopped in Florence, Alabama, met this fella, Tom Hendricks. He's a Wichita Native American. And he built a memorial wall for his great-great-grandmother, Tila May, who during the Trail of Tears, when they were rounding up all the indigenous people, they marched them all out to Oklahoma. She was a 15-year-old girl, and you couldn't hear the river singing or the birds singing out in Oklahoma. And she grew up on the Tennessee River, and they referred to that as the Singing River. And anyway, she walked alone all the way back there. And Tom, her great-great-great-grandson, as a memorial, built a wall for her, so that she would always be remembered what they did, and also try to preserve their native language. And anyways, this wall is constructed of, I think, 27 tons or something of rock he dug up and moved piece by piece to this area, his home in Alabama. And he constructed a circle with benches that the people from around the country and the world come and sing at. Mm-hmm. They took a guitar in there to play, and expecting a lot of response from nature. But all there was complete silence and just the resonance of the instrument while playing it. And so this kind of stuff is really powerful to me. And this all leads to a thought I had while you were talking about compression. And in performance, sound audio people use a compression device to squeeze the sound together so it's more controllable to put it out to the audience. And I thought that what a curious thing that the expansion that we're talking about here, that I've been listening to of getting the voice out, is so critical to like spiritual health and whatnot. But we've in the Western world apparently
compress it.
Yeah.
Smaller and smaller. And anyhow, I just wanted to share those thoughts and say how much I appreciate the call and response here today.
Yeah.
So, a real question. So
good comments.
You know, it's interesting how the landscape can enhance that sound, that reaction. I know Sherilyn and Tony and others have looked at, in their archaeoastronomy work, naturally concave wall faces and the ceremonies. I know Sherilyn and GB Cornucopia gave us a whole discourse on that on a Sunday. But that is call and response, right? An echo. An echo and amplification as well. And then I think we're describing how we can create that in our landscape, right? Temples. I know that the Templar Chapel that we participated in a ceremony there in England was really constructed to reverberate, to resonate, even embedding clay pots within these 8-inch thick walls, so that we are trying to create what we find in nature, what we've honored long ago in nature, those naturally acoustical places. We recreate those, even our concert halls, right? So we take care to engage with the call and response in nature. Our two guests have slideshows. Shall we go to the
Sure, let's do that. That was really
good
comments, Rich. Thank you for joining in the conversation. Okay, up to you. And Jane, did you have a slideshow, or I have one for you to share?
I do have. It's more. It's just a short one, and it's more around. We were talking before around the frame drum, which is a specific sort of drum, just looking at its history. So I just wanted to have a few minutes.
Should we save that for May 1st?
Or should we
focus on the drums?
Should we say, maybe we should save that. But I just one quick comment, what you were saying, like in the cathedrals that are built to sacred geometry. Someone once said to me that, it's, the resonance, that the echo that comes back is because our longing for God, or whatever God is, but in that context of a cathedral, and that the harmonic or the echo that comes back is the response from the divine.
Well, we could say that all religious hymns and music is really a call and response to the Creator, right?
Yes.
And to open up those doorways.
Absolutely.
But I want to just acknowledge to our really early ancestors who were living and doing ceremony in caves and dwellings and among rock faces and all of that, how special it must have appeared to them to have something emanate, to have nature respond, to see cracks in the walls, that this is where the spirits go in and out. And in the cave walls of France, to see that the natural configurations, the natural drip of water that congeals minerals to it and creates these ropes that look like mammoths, right? And then you just go, oh, it's emerging.
They would do the simplest amount of modification just to show.
Put an eye.
Yeah, they'd show you there. Yeah, exactly.
To complete what nature had already created. So that co-creation, that call and response with nature, even in art, is there. Well, even in art, music is art, visual art, sculpture, right? Just all of it, architecture.
Yeah.
That nature provides those magical places for us to. I also want to say that the best scientists are those that are mystics and scientists as well, right? Look at Einstein, and he's celebrated in his mystical side to him. So it was interesting to me that during Kim Clark-Sharp's discussion with us about the near-death experience, which is that spontaneous journey to the other side, but you get to come back, how many people wrote to us and said, thank you for that. I had one of those, and I've never been able to talk about it. And I can't in my job, I can't in my work, I can't in my business, I can't in the society in which I run. And to me, it is like so tragic that they all said this is one of the most precious experiences that I had, that we can't talk about that, right? That our society has shut us down to the point where we can't even talk about the most precious experiences that we've ever had in our life among them. And I just want to acknowledge how our Western point of view, the worldview under which we all operate, has shut all of us down to that degree, where the most precious stuff that we've ever had, we question it, we doubt it, we're taught to discount it, we're taught to set it aside, that we can't even voice that. We can't share that story. I think things are changing, of course, but I just want to acknowledge how broken we all are in our culture, how broken, and how it's this kind of stuff that's helping knit us back together, and how important finding our authentic voice is, and finding our song, and being able to share with one another and have these conversations. So I just wanted to say that.
Beautiful.
Yes, yeah. I think I agree that collectively, I think we are moving forward, but felt like a little glitch. Just with COVID, with the masks on, and I mean, we won't go there with so much of it, but just going into a shop and like, sorry, what did you say? I couldn't hear you, and just the whole population of the world was muffled. And masked, and I found
we
that
couldn't
really
see each
sad.
other smile, right? You
couldn't
walked
see
by
each other
somebody, you
smile.
smiled at them. That's a call and a response, and even that was taken away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So
I think we learned to do it with our energy, which is with a little more. But I found that really sad. That just not being able to.
I was listening to you about the broken state of the world, and I was desperately looking for a empowering version of seeing this. And I think it's and I remember those some friend on the internet, they were making this kind of frequency software, based on this knowledge that there is the frequency of the earth, there is the frequency of the sun, there is the frequency of the planets, and so on. And they were going into some debate there. um, and I just had this, I was struck by this vision, but why are they so bent on doing this in a technological way? I mean, if we close our eyes and we visualize the sea and we hear these waves, isn't that automatically connecting us to this frequency of the waves and of the sea? And it's like we can
Yeah.
instantly feel the benefit in the human body. So I think it's more like the world is not broken, I would say. It's just polarized. It's polarized in towards certain communication channels. No, we are being exposed to ta-na-na, 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 ta. You know, if you, why is it so hard to find our song? Because now we have all these channels coming from everywhere. We don't have this. I mean, one of the things I appreciate really in this village here, which some people regard as being quite backward and lost in time and space, you know, is exactly this thing that there's a lot of space, and there's a sky, and then you know there's nobody living on top of my head or under my feet. I mean, no humans. I mean, and.
Yeah.
And then there's this kind of feeling, and this changes a lot the perception. People are more grounded, you know, just as a direct continuation of the environment and of the physical way of living. They are more grounded. They are not so much in a hurry, and they can make time for each other to speak, you know, to talk. In the city, you meet somebody and it's a good friend. They say, "Oh, sorry, I'm in a rush, but I will call you and we'll talk next time." And we are living in this kind of entrainment, no? I think
I didn't say
Jane
the
was
world was
mentioning.
broken. I said we in the West
Yeah.
have
Yeah,
severed some of these ties
yeah,
that sustained
and
us.
and
Yes.
and like to continue with this frequency overexposure, no? We
Yeah.
have this EM overdose,
EMF.
no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
EMF overdose, and it's interesting for me that this EMF is affecting our throat center and our thyroid
How do you
gland.
mean? How do you mean?
That's the
The
whole.
It's
voice.
yes, it's affecting the voice and this thyroid gland and this which is very important for the human body, and so it's like we are suffocating. No, this is like basically
Yeah, I call it broken.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, basically in a music point of view, we are suffocated by sounds we are not singing.
Right. That's
We are
well known.
suffocated by sound. We're not.
We are not
singing.
singing.
Oh,
We should have you both sing.
That's
Can you both sing?
that's a
some
quotable. That's a quotable.
Yeah.
that is big time.
Yeah.
I have a. I don't know if it's appropriate right now, but I have a little song at some point. It's completely
Yes.
around that I would love to teach the group. I've got it on a little slide here. If that's, it's all around connecting back to nature.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you want to learn it?
Yeah.
Do you want me to turn everybody's mics on?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll sing it a few times first,
Okay.
and then. But what I would suggest is if you just get this in your feet. So if you just go step, and if you're just sitting on the ground, sitting in a chair, just move left and right. Dum, 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 dum. So you get that pulsation in your body first. Dum, dum, dum. So here we go. Put your roots down, put your feet on the ground. You can hear what she says when you're listening. Put your roots down, put your feet on the ground. You can hear what she says when you're listening. Sweet sound of the river as it moves across the stones. It's the same song as the blood in your body as it moves across your bones. We'll go faster. Put your roots down, put your feet on the ground. You can hear what she says when you're listening. Put your roots down, put your feet on the ground. You can hear what she says when you're listening. Boom, boom, boom. Sweet sound of the river as it moves across the stones. It's the same song as the blood in your body as it moves across your bones.
Okay. All right. Beautiful.
Repeat that. It's a nice one if you run groups.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you.
exercise. Yeah.
All right. So we'll take down the slide now, Jane. Yeah.
So,
Or maybe without the drum, can you give us
Maybe.
give us an example of the sound?
throat singing,
well,
you mean?
well, yeah, the dual tone.
Yeah,
Getting
it's
the
called throat
This.
singing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, let's see if this technology can help us hear each other. This is the very low style. It's connected with the lower world and lower emotions which we are blocking, but we are inheriting from our animal brothers and sisters. And in this emotion, which we don't like, which we are too civilized and sophisticated for. In these emotions, there lies tremendous strength and healing power for our body. Yes. And the connection with the Mother Earth. And then there is the middle style, which is like for the middle world, which is like for the human dimension, which is a lot to do with the chest Yeah. And then there is the even higher style, which I don't know if I will be able to do, but I will try whatsoever will come out. And this is for connected with the sky dimensions and the higher frequencies. And it's like a whistle. He.
Alexandru. Yeah, you're so your mic's cutting it off, so we're not hearing you at that level. But yeah. But
Yeah, it's
so-
interesting how much you sounded
yeah.
like a didgeridoo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a lot of resonance there. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm going to play. I had this wonderful experience with Jane. She came to the Institute. We had just met. We had about 4 or 5 days together. And at the end, when it was time to leave, I said, can we go in and do a recording? And I took just a regular MacBook computer, put it in the center of the kiva, in the kiva, the round circle structure that we use as a sacred ceremony space, and just a single microphone in the center of the room, and we recorded it in one take. And so it was really fun and exciting to do that. And so this is not a produced piece of music. It's a single microphone, and the only thing I've done to it is I've added a little reverb. Other than that, it's just exactly what happened. So I thought that would be fun for...
It's no editing. It's just,
yeah.
just what you
So-
had.
I can't remember it at all.
Oh, you'll hear it now then. Let me see if I go here.
And Paul put some slides
Oh, I
to
have to-
this.
Yeah,
as
I have
well.
to go to share 1 second. Hopefully you'll be able to hear this good.
That was Paul on the flute.
Right.
And Jane on drum and voice. And what I love about that is you don't need words.
Yeah.
There was so much conveyed, right?
Yeah.
It just shows you the power of music and sound. It said it all. It didn't need words.
Yeah.
I mean, there were words, but they weren't, words.
word
and
words,
it was spontaneous,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. There was zero practice. There was no.
There was
she didn't know.
no contemplation. There was no discussion. They just went in,
yeah.
and this is what
That
they
was
came out
fun.
of.
That
And
was
this was
fun.
after a 5-day workshop.
And I never
Wow.
have played flute like that.
Yes,
That
that's
style
not
of
your typical.
dude. I don't do that. But and then
It just came.
yeah.
It was perfect.
And I
Yeah.
haven't played it
Yeah,
since.
just lovely.
Oh, Paul, we've got to remedy that.
Yeah.
Oh, he plays
We've got
the
to
flute,
do
but
something
not
about
that style.
Yeah. Well, you came to also when we did another 6 or 8 songs or something that I have, but I just wanted to highlight that one because it was so much fun at the Institute. It was spontaneous and just using the Kiva as a recording studio, and so yeah.
Yeah, a resonant
that was
chamber
fun.
indeed.
Yeah.
So
Well,
nice.
and I think I wanted to come back to I know Alexandru. We're going to invite you on behalf of the Institute to come and share some finding your authentic voice. And so we thought we would choose a time in May that would work.
May 10th?
May 10th would work.
At 9
A
a.m.
Tuesday.
Pacific, noon
Yeah.
Eastern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
On a Tuesday for
I don't even
several
have it
hours.
on the website yet, so I have to go back and put that up. But we'll have that available to people. And please stay in touch. Email us for now. But we'll have a little shopping cart thing. It's going to be very, very reasonably priced. Something so that everybody has a
I want to
chance.
say that in the hour that you spent with us saying, well, this is what a course is like, only I'm going to do it more in depth. It was really profound.
Yeah.
It was profound to find where I was stuck, right? And a lot of it was on unladylike sounds.
Yeah,
Let me put it that
self-conscious,
way.
like, oh, I shouldn't sound like this. Right?
Yeah, my mother's upbringing, right? Like, be a lady,
Yeah.
right? Be. It was so interesting
Yeah.
and to hear and start to tune the instrument that we are, to get to know it. And I really appreciate how both of you have excelled in your use of your voice and bringing your voice out and teaching about the voice and how much is wrapped into it, right? I didn't think I had issues with my voice, but boy, did I find the stuck places. Oh, it's interesting. So,
As Alexandru, you took us through those paces, just allowing ourselves to make sounds without laughing at ourselves or being worried about
to
it.
give permission.
But just,
Yeah.
finding that space within and getting that sound to come out.
The power, right?
Yeah.
We're afraid of our own power so often, aren't we? And what is there? And also to have the whole gamut, to get out of the head and get into our bodies and its wisdom and its what it wants to share and the instrument it can be to connect us to one another and to everything is just beautiful.
And interestingly enough, it sort of I keep finding myself going to the Chiltan posture. It's one of the postures of the Institute.
Yes.
It's the right hand over the left. And so I'm putting my hand into two different places on my body, which we hold as a posture. But when you do that with sound, something else is happening. And when I had that time with you, Alexandru, I just kept finding myself going here because I wanted to feel where was the sound coming from and how was it moving within my body.
This is the healing pose.
And it's considered to be a healing pose, right?
I also want to say that on behalf of our institute, because we are here to expand upon the basic research, is that we have a couple of postures where the mouth is open in the artifact, and so we tone.
Right.
And these are celebration poses for the most part, right? Mm-hmm. It is so profound to activate the voice inside a ritual, inside a trance state, and to see what comes through. And I think that and you being Paul, I mean, you're the ceremonialist here, and you're the one who's the musician. Sorry, Alexandru, but I'm not.
We're all keep going.
I'm learning to be. I have to open that one up, but I haven't yet. But it is something that we've often been asked. We have. This is going to be exciting. This posture that you see in petroglyphs everywhere, I am dialoguing with some native Coast Salish folks through a gallery owner, our friend Lee Brooks, and he says, this is part of their welcome dance. Paul and I pulled this from artifacts all over the world, and we called this is the welcome spirits posture. We named it that. We had no idea that they have this as the welcome dance, a gesture. And the welcome dance, I think I knew this was a welcome gesture. But so often people say, well, what about dance? Yeah, what about dance? Here we have this, we hold this stationary, but it's part of a dance, right? We consider our whole ritual a choreography. To perform, to welcome this choreography. Dance and voice and song is something that we need to expand our own understanding of offerings, integrate them into our work. And so we rely on those of you in our community who have taken your own work to some beautiful extent to see where this all comes together, to see how we can use this today. What are we but the revival? I say we're the current ring on a very long chain for this work. And it's going to be renegotiated, renewed, re-upped with each generation. What wants to come through us as a community with this? These are our tools. What are we going to do with it? So I want to call for the dancers, the musicians, the vocalists. Let's explore together on this and see where the Kuya-Monkey Institute needs to expand into this. We've been given it through the mass trance dance and these celebration postures. A good beginning. If you feel called to it, let's explore together on this.
Yeah.
Just extraordinary.
Yeah.
Whoa. Wow.
So what are you showing us, Paul?
I just showed him, you said the welcome the spirit, so I took him through around the world, some of the examples.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. These are notes from spirit journeys. These are ritual instructions. These are speak to us today, even now.
Encoded.
How can we do this?
Yeah.
So.
Well, another 2 hours of conversation for exploration has happened, and thank you both so much for the spirit from where you come from, the authenticity of your voice, hopefully inspiring the authenticity of our voices, and that all of us can find that space within ourselves.
How to activate these instruments that we own right here.
And it doesn't even have to be something, if you're less inclined to think of as some sort of self-development practice, but simply as someone who speaks publicly. finding your authentic voice, someone who presents, speaking to your family, because you just find that maybe you've been talking and speaking your entire life with the wrong voice, that it's not the one that really is yours, that you were taught to speak a certain way because you were told that this is how you're supposed to sound, and all of a sudden, wait a minute, I'm over. If I just would let go and breathe, maybe I'll have a voice that really brings through the power of who I am as a person, what I have to share in this world. That's the power of what you two are teaching and bringing to us.
Do you want to tell your own personal story? A voice?
I don't know, a personal story. What are you, Laura? Where are we going?
He feels like I'm going to out him, but
oh, no.
Paul grew up with a very strong Maine accent.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot understand his family when they speak half the time, but he consciously had to let go of that when he left Maine and started to travel around Europe and the U.S. Nobody could understand.
I went to this one training program.
Nothing against his
family.
They're
We all took turns
beautiful.
public speaking, and it's still to this day, it was like it was yesterday, but unfortunately it was more like 35 years ago or something, and I took my turn to stand up, and one of my good friends, John Monahan, is sitting in the front row, and I started to speak. And he started laughing so hard he fell out of his chair trying to understand what I was saying. And so the Maine accent is very thick for those that are not familiar with it, but it's a very heavy and thick accent. And my family has even a thicker accent because they're from central Maine. And so it took some manipulating of my jaw and my mouth to be able to speak in an English that people understood. So yeah, that's my story.
And also a lot of your family members have a little bit of a strangled voice, so I think that's a learned thing from familially, right? And so you had to loosen that up as well. So we each have our own personal voice journeys.
That was my...
I know that when I get very upset, I start to speak too fast and too high. And if I listen to myself, I go, oh, you're a little bit tense. Drop it down. And if I can consciously drop it down, it calms me down.
Alexandru?
Absolutely.
Paul's family has a good potential for throat singing.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Very good.
Oh,
Very
pine
good.
tree state.
Yes.
Oh, very
Yeah,
good.
it's the pine tree state. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, blessings to you all. You two, any final comments?
Well, I have a final comment. Jane will join us on Women and the Drum with her slideshows, both of them.
Yes.
On the May 1st.
May
Sunday,
1st.
May 1st.
Yes.
May Day.
Alexandru will lead for the Cuyamaga Institute, and you're all invited.
Authentic
there will be a
voice
fee,
training.
a small fee. That goes half to the Institute, half to Alexandru. We're going to support his work as well.
like
and it will
under
be
$30, 20
3
something
hours.
bucks,
Yeah, 20 hours. 3 hours. And Alexandru, do you want to describe that? What's going to be in this workshop online? You're going to work with each of us individually.
It will be based on the principle of call and response. I will start it in a certain way, and then we'll see what comes from the participants. But mainly, we will look and expose ourselves to all these blocks. If they are physical blocks, like we don't like we don't like our belly, so then we don't speak from the belly because the belly is bad, no? Or mental blocks. We will look at this kind of stuff while practicing a lot with the voice, and just really the main intention is to discover the joy of letting your voice free. And from there, everything can develop how you want and if you want. And but this is the main thing which we want to get back. We have it, but we forgot it.
I want to say how powerful it is in the demo that you gave us. I mean, really, it truly gets down into that, calls it up, looks at it. I think it's so interesting to be able to work with the voice and release so much other stuff that's been constricting it and constricting your psyche as well.
Yeah.
It's good psyche work as well as fun. And Alexandru, you're a wonderful teacher. You make it fun, you make it engaging, you make it interesting. It's a voyage of self-discovery. So thank you, Alexandru, for being part of this community and on our community house program and doing the work that you do.
It was a pleasure to meet Jane, and I'm very happy
Likewise.
for the meeting.
And
All the best
likewise.
wishes for you.
Yeah, and to you too.
And it was
Beautiful
fun to
meet
see
and
where
all of
you both came together and in this work and where you, And Jane, we look forward to May 1st,
Yes.
a tour through history And it's
absolutely, and also,
Yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry. It will also be experiential. So, you know, the thing is that we all, as well as our voice, we're rhythmic beings, and so there will be some experiences for people to have in terms of finding your own rhythm as well,
And
as well as yeah.
I think this whole mission of women reclaiming our true place side by side and co-equal in power and influence with men. I think
Well,
this is
also,
a
I think
journey to also look at the history and see how women and see where women are and what we've done through history and how we've been a little bit erased. We need to reclaim that. So for me, it's also a matter of that.
Yeah, and I think the patriarchy killed off men as well. But you know, but certainly we're going to be looking at the frame drum in particular, right back to its origin, 6,500 BC is the earliest image that I have. So I've been collecting them over a long time, and we'll be doing some voice and rhythm stuff. So yeah, excited for that, and not excited for the time frame, but I'll be back at 1:30 in the morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Jane. Listen, I asked everybody turn on your mics. We usually say goodbye and thank you to the guests. We will do that, but let's also just release some sounds.
Yes.
Alexandru, lead us in some sound release. The entire community.
Let's do
Yes,
it.
please.
We breathe in deeply, and then.
Indeed.
Thank you so much. Everybody say thank you to Jane and to Alexandru.
Thank you.
Thank you. Merci. Mahalo. Thank you. Fabulous.